Hello, everyone, and welcome. I hope you're all safe and healthy. I want to make it clear that your children and dogs are also invited to this webinar, and shoes are optional. Now, I'm familiar with some of the people who are joining today, but for those new folks, I'm Isaac Brown. I lead the Industrial Tech Group here at Landmark Ventures. Now, we have a lot of content to cram into 30 minutes, so let's just get into it. And, throughout, feel free to submit questions via the Q&A chat box. So we're here today to discuss the impact of technology on operational resilience, and specifically some of the obstacles associated with driving digital transformation across industrial operations. So I'd like to start by introducing our panelists. We've got Magnus, who's the Chief Information Officer for Manufacturing at GE Power. GE needs no introduction. And we've got Olivier, who's VP and GM for the IoT Solutions Group at Sierra Wireless. Sierra Wireless is a leading provider of IoT and digital solutions. Now, guys, maybe you can just briefly introduce yourselves and tell us a little bit about your roles. Just 30 seconds each. Magnus, you want to go first?
Sure. So hello again. I'm Magnus, and as Isaac mentioned, I lead IT and OT for the manufacturing network within GE that builds components for gas turbines and the assembly and service of these components.
Okay, great. Thanks, Magnus. Olivier?
Yeah, good morning, good afternoon, everyone. So I'm Olivier Posé. I'm the VP of product for Sierra for device and cloud. I'm based in Vancouver, Canada. And to give you a quick background, so Sierra Wireless is a leading company today when we speak about devices for IoT, embedded modules, gateways. But over time, we found out that it was not enough. It was still too complex for our customers. So we went up to the IoT stack to provide the overall device to cloud solution, which is very easy to use through very simple cloud API, and we'll come back to that.
Great. Okay, thanks, guys. So let's kick it off with a big picture question. Right. So in a lot of ways, 2020 has turned IoT from a nice to have to a need to have. And, finally, there's a lot more urgency around driving these digital agendas forward. So just big pictures, how can companies succeed in driving global IoT strategies? Magnus, you're involved in that battle every day. So you wanna kick it off?
There's obviously just a lot to unpack there, but to me, three big things stand out, and to really succeed and deliver outcomes at scale, you've got to have what I think of as a platform strategy and a product mindset. So in my world, it's a very complex world, lots of different locations, different use cases, this and that, lots of legacy systems, and if you don't have it means that you can think about products for certain digital capabilities from, not just from the software side, but also on, gateways and connectivity to machines and so on and so forth. You cannot operate at scale in the first place. And then also in my mind, or in my world, a lot of that has to do with, leveraging native services in the cloud to deliver loosely coupled microservices concept that allows you to move at scale in different combinations depending on your use case. So I think that's one. Another big thing that comes to mind is, what I think of almost as a prerequisite, which is the actual, maybe not organizational, but at least cultural and collaborative merging of IT and OT. If you do not make that happen, you'll continue to have the organization operate in silos, so it's going to slow you down, and often, you'll fail as a result of it. And lastly, I almost think of it as removing these, I think of them as big words, so transformation and innovation from your vocabulary. To me, innovation is something you do all day, every day, day in, day out, of taking your operational goals, and in your lean events and your Kaizen events, you embed these new tools and technologies in your everyday problem solving, and you move the needle in 10,000 small steps. I'm not a big believer, in these big hockey stick projects, if you will. You work hard for 6 months, you go live, you high five, then you just can't move fast enough. So those are, to me, three big areas where, every organization has to find its way of navigating in the right way.
And that's great and prescriptive. Thanks, Magnus. Olivier, what do you think?
Yeah, no, I'm pretty aligned with actually what Magnus has been saying, and it's very interesting to get perspective of an end user of IoT, of somebody who is developing IoT every day. For us, we are a provider of technology, so we are dealing with customer like GE and what Magnus is doing every day, and we are seeing again and again the same pattern. And I fully agree with your statement, Magnus, on especially on the last one on innovation. Is that today a lot of companies see IoT as a big step, and they focus first on the technology, trying to find out and go deep into the stack, while they should focus more on the business benefit of it. Rely on a generic platform that will provide all the technology under the hood and focus on the business benefit, and have the flexibility and the agility to be able to iterate. So it's not one big hockey stick, as you were saying, but we need to go step by step. We need to do multiple proof of concept, find out what is the best way, be able to fail fast, be able to succeed fast, and be able to deal with IoT like any other innovation, and to do that on a day-to-day basis.
Great. Thanks, Olivier. I really quickly, I want to drill into one thing that you said, Magnus. You said getting IT and OT people aligned, right? And we hear about this problem all the time. You have IT people who know a lot about the cloud and predictive analytics and IoT. They don't really know about the problems necessarily in OT. And then on the flip side, you have engineering folks and operations folks who understand the realities of industrial environments, but maybe they aren't masters of some of the latest and greatest AI technologies. Magnus, you have an interesting role in that you're the CIO for manufacturing. Like, how do you bridge that gap between those two worlds?
I wish I had the secret sauce, and the rest of the secret sauce there, Isak. That's a really tough one. But I'll share some, some tricks or some tools, if you will, that I've found effective. I think some of it is a little bit of kind of good cop, bad cop sort of approach, where obviously, you got to focus on, your business targets and your operational KPIs, like scrap and rework, like on-time delivery, like variable product cost, like severe events or defects on the floor, etc. And really work your way back. And then again, like I said, apply the sort of help educate the MEs in this case, or quality engineers, on how to solve for those problems using a different set of tools in the toolbox that they may used to in the past. So that's kind of where IT in general needs to sort of be at the table and really, teach, but also then, to your point, learn the methods on the shop floor and the problems trying to solve for. But then on the bad cop side, I always think of Amazon. They did something pretty crazy, or I guess it wasn't crazy. It was very effective a couple of years ago, where corporate went, in their annual planning process. There's a little line in there, and when they sent out all the planning requirements to all the lines of businesses, where they said, "Tell us how you apply machine learning in your business." Parenthesis, not doing so is not an option. Of course, now ops leaders and general managers have to think about machine learning. I've heard about this, but what is it, right? And they have to learn the math behind it and what it means to build predictive powers using mathematical equations and so on. And the results speak for themselves. I think that's a big reason why Amazon has been so successful today. And I think a little bit of that also needs to be kind of on the bad cop side of really imposing kind of some of these constraints on the OT side to learn these technologies, and then learning how to apply them in a daily work, and not giving reasons as to why you should continue down the path that you know so well.
Interesting. Okay.
And maybe I could add a few things. So,
please.
That we are really at the heart of the complexity of IoT. So that's why IoT is so hard today, because it encompasses a lot of different skill sets from the OT world, device, embedded technologies, and you need to be a telecom expert, because in between OT and IT there is a network. So you need to have some telecom expertise, and then you need to have cloud expertise. So there are companies like, and Magnus, I put GE still as a big company with a lot of skill set and capabilities, but we have a lot of SMEs, medium, small size companies that need to move toward IoT, and for them it's just impossible. They will never be able to deal with all this type of expertise. Being, again, an embedded expert, a telecom expert, a cloud expert, a cybersecurity expert, an operation manager expert.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot of different skill set, and it's not accessible for them. And I think as an industry, we didn't do a very good job yet, providing to our customer more problems than solution, providing device on one hand, connectivity on the other hand, cloud on the third hand, and pushing our customer to figure out by themselves on how to stitch all of that together. And again, what we are trying to do now is to see the problem completely differently. And instead of providing problem to our customer, let's provide them a solution, a generic platform that goes again from the device to the cloud with very simple cloud APIs that now any cloud developer can do IoT. They don't need to call an embedded developer. They don't need to go a telecom expert. We should make IoT easy for everyone.
Right. Yeah, I think the IoT tech stack combines more technical skills than most people give it credit for. It's beyond the scope of the average IT department, right? It's a lot of things, and then to actually make it work, you have to unite, what is effectively one of the most complicated tech stacks with the full suite of, operational management skills. So it's tricky. So, I think part of that is one of the reasons why a lot of companies start IoT projects. And if you look at the last 5 years, it's basically a graveyard of pilots, right? That don't convert into commercial rollouts. What advice would you guys have for, companies to get past pilot purgatory and move to, scale commercial rollouts for some of these IoT projects? Olivier, you go through this every day with your partners. So what advice would you have?
No, absolutely. And again, items that we already cover a little bit. So one of the issue is that when a company does pilot, in a lot of cases, it ends up to be how to find out what is the technology we want to use, rather than let's focus on the business outcome of the pilot itself. So it becomes a lot of technology discussion about what kind of protocol, what kind of network, what kind of endpoint, do I do edge processing, not edge processing, cloud, and so on. And then we are going back to what I just said about this complexity, about, I need to have an embedded guy which is expert in his domain. I need to hire a telecom expert that will discuss with all the carriers in the world. And then I need to have some cloud expertise. And what about cybersecurity and so on? So during the pilot process, they are discovering all of that and find out that they need to hire a bunch of people that get all this expertise, and that take a lot of time and cost a lot of money. The ideal case would be that you have solutions that allow you to do pilot quickly. So out of the box, you take a device, you get your data into the cloud. That allow you to make not one pilot during 6 months or 9 months and find out whether it's the right one or not, but to do 10 pilots in parallel, be able to iterate from the pilot and be able to fail fast where you have to fail and succeed where you have to succeed. So it's really to rethink about the pilot process, not being a big technology assessment, but to be an innovation project where you want to test multiple of things. And you don't know, by definition, innovation, there is a lot of things that you don't know. So you need to accept that there will be things that will fail, that will be things that will be successful. And to do that, you need to have a platform that allows you to do that. If I'm taking a little bit a parallel on what was done in the IT world 15 years ago. 15 years ago, when you wanted to do an app, the barrier of entry was very high. You had to buy your own server, your own clean room, your own IT integrator, and so on to build your apps. These days, it's no more the case. You go to the cloud, everybody can go to the cloud, everybody can innovate, get access to the best in class in terms of technology, and be able to test new concepts very easily by developing their apps in the cloud. And we need to bring the same thing to IoT. We should not force our customer to think about infrastructure when they do the POC. We should have an infrastructure as a service to make it extremely easy to access to the technology, to enable them to be able to test multiple of concepts, fail fast where they have to fail, and succeed where they have to succeed.
Okay, I like it. Fail fast is the key message there. You got to do it. What about you, Magnus? What do you think about how to get from pilot to scale?
two things come to mind. One, as you know, building on this sort of Amazon example, you know, where to give one in my own world, you know, we have a couple of issues right now with a couple of products where we're seeing some defects being passed, you know, kind of escaping our checkpoints and ending up in the hands of customers, which is never a good thing. And so now, how do we solve, you know, the escape question? And you know, again, what we've been doing there is just setting the framework. You know, we're not going to solve it the old way. You know, we're going to solve for this business problem. These are the business metrics in terms of the cost of these defects, the occurrence of these defects. They're going to come down to, you know, these targets. But the way we're solving for it now is using native services in the cloud and the latest IoT capabilities to connect machines, put gateways in place, ingest all this data, use real-time data streaming technologies to stream it in the right place, in the right time, and building, you know, blocks and controls into our processes using the latest technologies. And in doing so, also declaring a war almost on these legacy systems and paper-based processes. So it's really about setting a framework for taking these real problems that the organization will solve for anyhow, but making sure we solve for it in the right way. And also through, you know, that's kind of the second thing, you know, Olivia mentioned this, where, you know, when we really now start, you know, talk about infrastructure as a service and really build, you know, using native services at the edge in the cloud, now you can move fast. Now you can compose capabilities at speed and at scale that otherwise is impossible, meaning you can fail fast. And then move at a pace that's, you know, unheard of from the old way that, you know, OT and IT used to be done. So I see that trend coming, and these things two together is making me feel, you know, pretty optimistic about the future.
Awesome. Okay, there's one other theme I want to touch on, and then I'd love to do some Q&A from the audience. So I've seen a few questions pop up in here, but I'd love to open the floodgates to the attendees. Please feel free to pop a couple questions in there. We can get to them in a few minutes. I want to look at ROI, right? I think that's one of the major, I would say, inhibitors to the space is a lack of belief in the return on investment that people get from buying these things, right? And I think that's part of the pilot purgatory problem is a lot of times people aren't clear on the ROI proposition from the pilot, and then they don't scale. So I guess I would ask this is how can stakeholders ensure that IoT projects return a positive investment, right? Because that's at the end of the day, this is all about value creation, ROI. So how can we make sure that happens? So which of you wants to start with that one?
Oh, that's a hard one. You know, above and beyond, you know, the things that I've talked about of, you know, embedding that in your day-to-day rhythm, continuous improvement, you know, don't create separate innovation teams, embed in your day-to-day. I think a lot of it still has to do around teaching. Meaning, you know, there's this expression of you can't see what you don't know. So if you don't know and understand the fundamentals of machine learning and predictive algorithms or real-time data streaming technologies, or how you visualize data at scale, or how you put appliances in place to really solve your connectivity and gateway problem overnight, you know, it's hard to demand from the organization to start to operate differently. So I think a big part of that, and that's, you know, if I'll reflect on you know, on even here at GE, you know, I wouldn't even say that's on my side almost like a failure of failing to really evangelize stakeholders on, if you will, the art of the possible in a way where they, you know, as a team, we can really sort of, again, demand on a different way of solving for the same old business problems that we're solving for anyhow.
Yeah, maybe I can add to that. So when we speak about ROI, again, you have two aspects of it. One is what is the benefit of IoT and what are you going to gain with IoT? So after is the usual items that you can find in any digital transformation is what are the costs that you can save and what are the new services that you can offer to your customer. Now what we see more and more is, yeah, you can assess what will be the cost of saving and these kind of things, but especially with what happens this year with the COVID crisis is that some customers are realizing that they just cannot live without IoT. It's not about what is the incremental saving I can do and so on. It's just that if I don't have IoT, I cannot operate.
Mm-hmm.
And we start to get this mindset that IoT is table stake. You need to have an IoT infrastructure, that you have an IT infrastructure in your office. You don't ask every day yourself, do I need an IT infrastructure in my office? It's table stake, of course you need it. And same thing with IoT. IoT is becoming table stake. And companies that will not get this infrastructure will not be able to be successful moving forward. And so that really on the business and why companies should do IoT. Now on the cost aspect of it, one of the issues of the cost aspect is that it's very hard to assess what would be the cost of IoT. Because again, you have multiple elements. You have the device, you have the connectivity, you have the cloud, you have the data model, you have a lot of, you have cyber security, you have plenty of different items that piles up, and it's very hard for a company before they start to say, but how much these things will cost? It's very hard to assess, and I think something as an industry, we need to be a better job to provide more transparency, more simple business model for our customer to make it very straightforward. The cost of IoT should be a very simple discussion that you need to transfer this amount of data, it will cost you this money. And that includes everything, the connectivity, the security, the embedded processing, the cloud connection, and so on and so on. But today there are multiple players, a lot of integration to do, and it's very hard for our customer to have a clear understanding on what will be the cost of IoT.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, you do IoT because you save money or you make money. So it has to somehow translate to that. And I think we're getting closer to understanding that ROI proposition. So we have a bunch of questions popping up in here. A few of them kind of touch on the same theme. So I'm just gonna read a few of them and kind of combine them into one question. Where can we go to find platforms and systems that connect to a variety of sensors and IoT devices and pump that data into the cloud so we don't have to spend a ton of time figuring out APIs? How do you look at introducing these new platforms into a world of legacy and proprietary DCS devices? And then I think this guy summarizes best. In order for industrial IoT to be easy for everyone, it should be standardized. Are we heading in that direction? So this is just the kind of the big picture, interoperability, like how do I take an entire world that's full of machines made by thousands of different vendors over multiple decades, speaking all their own, how do I get it all connected, right? Like we've been trying to figure that out for years. So, I mean, I feel like Olivier, that's like right down the center for what your group does. So what do you think? Are we heading in that direction? Are we getting closer?
Yeah, no, we are getting closer, and this is exactly what we do every day, what we have been doing every day for the last 15 years. And again, we have been coming from the device world, so in the past, and we still do, but we are providing device, and that's it. And our customer was having to find out what to do with this device and how to connect, how to add middleware, and so on. And now we are evolving our model by adding a lot of basically middleware between the edge and the cloud. And what we're offering today is basically you take one of our devices, there is API at the edge that allow you to connect to protocols, so Modbus and other protocols, that allow you to also get an open framework to have proprietary protocol if you have this type of thing. So that will be at the edge. And then after you have cloud API to get access to your data, but you should not worry anymore about what's going on in between the device, the network, the cloud. We take care about that for our customer. We provide this overall infrastructure, and we make sure that it can scale and it is secure, because the security is also one of the critical items for IoT, which is a complex one. And our duty is to make sure that we provide security from device to cloud. And the job of our customer will be to take care about the two hands. And again, we provide here the simple cloud API or edge API. From an edge standpoint, connect our device to their assets through the protocols they use, or connect to the sensor through the sensors they are using. And from the cloud, provide a very simple cloud APIs that enable any cloud developer to do IoT.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then Magnus, you've been fighting this battle for forever, right? You got the internal manufacturing. Yeah, you got the internal manufacturing network at GE Power. Before this, you were trying to get data from the GE machines in the field. How do you view the evolution of interoperability and connectivity?
I think the answer here is twofold, and both of them are actually, in my view, deeply technical. So if I start, so the two worlds here obviously is edge and cloud. So starting with the edge piece, yes, connecting machines, I think of that as hand-to-hand combat, but I'm now seeing, the edge and cloud capabilities really merging together and being unified as one. So we're having a lot of success now with, leveraging leveraging the IoT platforms are available to you, not just the big hyperscalers. There's lots of other sort of second-tier players that provide these platforms and abilities to connect devices and manage devices from the cloud. So for example, in the old world, we put Arduinos on the shop floor. In new world, we put ESP32s in there to connect to the cloud, and we can do all the firmware upgrades remotely from the cloud. Allows you to really operate at scale. Of course, now with translation platforms, we have Modbus, we have MP Connect, we have OPC UAR, we have all the standards in place. And yes, there's still too many, but we're able to sort of take all those standards and sort of really manage the edge from the cloud at scale and at a level of security that just wasn't possible in the past. So that to me is a big part of operating at scale. Which is really, again, the answer is doing it from the cloud and then deploying to the edge from there. The other side is this, and this is, I saw this question about legacy systems. I mean, especially industrial organizations like ours, the legacy is everywhere. We got, I looked at a critical application just the other day, and it's a Visual Basic platform from the year 1991. I ripped this thing out. And the answer is, native services in the cloud that you compose and lose a couple of microservices, and you start to tear down all these old monoliths, old monolithic MES systems or third-party apps that do all these things. You got to find ways to break them down into small, tangible, bite-sized products that communicate via, APIs or MQTT, messaging or, queuing methodologies, what have you, to, build them in small chunks you can deploy on the shop floor in bits and pieces. And I call it kind of the strangling methodology. Over time, you strangle these legacy systems. And lastly, in doing so, you have to set targets on getting rid of these legacy systems and doing what it takes. So it's not just, figuring out how you're going to improve your scrap and rework number, for example. It's also about what does it take to get rid of this thing. But of course, always leaning out the process first. Don't digitize the old process. Lean out the process, figure out the capabilities you need, refactor using microservices, and before you know it, people start feeling the urge to start using these legacy systems.
Interesting. Okay, there's one other thing I want to cover, and I think we'll probably run a couple minutes over. So anybody that has to drop in 2 minutes, we'll share a recording afterwards. And if you want to connect with me or any of the panelists, just send me an email. I think you all have my email address. But a few people ask this in different ways. I guess it's kind of this idea of, can you share a case study of a win, right, of a valuable IoT rollout? Just because I think we need that. We need more examples of successful, valuable projects. So I guess I'd love to just hear from each of you. Maybe Olivier, if you want to share about one of your partners doing something that generated a lot of value. Maybe Magnus, you can talk about a GE one. But I'd love to hear just an IoT rollout win success story. So Olivier, can you maybe just give us an example of a successful deployment?
Yeah, no, and I'm sure Magnus will speak about G. So I'm going to take an example of a small company. Again, IoT is touching really the overall industries, and there is a lot of SMEs as well as big corporations, obviously, but a lot of SMEs that today basically are struggling with IoT. And I will be even say more on that, is that today with what the industry is providing, this company cannot do IoT because the barrier of entry is too high. They don't have the skill set, or they need to pay an entry ticket too high to get somebody that integrates everything for them. And it's really what we want to change by providing an out-of-the-box device to cloud solution. And we have a very interesting case. One example is a company called AxiBio, which is doing managing organic waste in Europe. Small companies that goes again in this new niche market of managing the organic waste for restaurants, municipalities, and so on. And they're managing the full life cycle of the waste, and it's very critical for them to be able to monitor in real time what is the level of waste in the different containers that they have. monitors the temperature and so on, and out of that they are generating some methane, so some gas and so on. So there is a lot of parameters they need to monitor for safety reason as well. And again, for these small companies, IoT was a table stake. It was not about do I have an ROI and so on. It's to operate my business, I need to have IoT. And for them, again, that was a big barrier of entry that was putting at stake basically the viability of their business, because they didn't have an easy path to be able to go into IoT. Either they had to hire a team of 15 people, or they had to rely on an outsourced partner that was with an entry point that was far too high to what they were able to afford. And with what we have been able to provide, again, an IoT as a service platform, if you wish, with recurring revenue, recurring business model, it's been very easy for this company to take our device, connect our device to their organic waste, beach trash machine, if you wish, get access to the data and be able to roll out that all over Europe without having to worry about cybersecurity, without having to worry whether it's going to be approved in that country or that country, whether it will work in Poland or in Spain or in South Africa. We take care about all of that, and they get access to the data they need and can operate their business. And we see more and more of this, again, SMEs that today are struggling even to be able to get access to IoT, and we make that now possible.
That's a great example. Okay, Magnus, one from you, and then we'll wrap it up. Be considerate of everyone's time.
You know, I'll step out from my, my world of manufacturing and just look at GE overall. I think we're making good headway, in terms of adjusting our go-to-market practices and, and sort of ways of operating through some of this technology, starting with, my friends in aviation who are now working with some airlines on service contracts that are based on flight hours, which all enabled through IoT and models, or in healthcare, same thing, MRI machines, are being sold by the scan. In the gas, we're in a power generation world where, we have a fleet of plants that are connected through, these command centrals where we really monitor performance, which again allows us to engage in business models that, weren't possible in the past. So, I see good trends and movements all over GE, and we got a long way to go, but yeah, we're making headway.
Yeah, I think that's something that you both touched on at the end. I think this was largely a technical conversation, but there's a huge business model innovation opportunity through the use of connectivity and digital technologies. Maybe we'll cover that in a future session. We're a few minutes over, so I want to make sure that we're considerate of everybody's time. Olivier, Magnus, thank you guys so much. I think that was really interesting. We'll put this video up online. We'll share it with everybody afterwards. If anybody's interested in connecting with, me or Magnus or Olivier, just let me know, or any of the other guests who joined today who were asking great questions. We appreciate it. But thank you all. I hope everyone stays safe and sane, and have a wonderful day.
Thank you.
Thank you.